Welcome everyone to our Packers News live chat alongside Ryan Wood. I am Olivia Reiner. The big day is tomorrow. The Packers will finally make their cuts down to the initial 53 and their 16-man practice squad. Before we discuss some of the biggest competition along the roster, I want to remind you, as always, we want to hear from you. If you have a question and you're over on Facebook, leave us a question, leave us a comment in the chat. Ryan and I will address some of your questions toward the end of our discussion today. Let's start with the offensive position groups, namely the running backs. This offseason, the Packers added second-round pick A.J. Dillon through the draft to a very already crowded running backs room. Not only did the Packers already have players like running backs Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, they also had 6th-round 2019 pick in Dexter Williams and return specialist Tyler Ervin. Ryan, how many running backs are the Packers likely to carry in their 2020 initial roster?
Well, if we're still counting Tyler Ervin as a running back, I have them keeping all 5. Yep, I had Dexter Williams as my 53rd guy. Could be a handful of guys there. I mean, it's wide open. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Dexter Williams ended up on practice squad. 2 reasons why I kept him on the 53. One, you look at the long-term situation, the outlook at that position. The top 2 guys are going into the final year of their contract. I think that, usually most years you see those last couple spots be kind of redshirt years. There's 46 that you can carry into a game, so there's room for him to be on the roster even if he doesn't contribute right away. And there is some special teams. He was first team kickoff return, for example. So there's some special teams value that he can have. 2, this is a guy that they knew was going to take some time. They knew that Dexter Williams was going to take some time. They drafted him in the 6th round last year for a reason. He's taken time. He's needed to develop. I don't think they're surprised about how it's gone. So I have him as the 53rd guy. Could be a handful of guys, though. They really did come down to about 3 or 4 guys for that position. I took Dexter Williams.
While the running backs room added some talent through the draft this offseason, the wide receivers room did not. The Packers did add free agent wide receiver Devin Funchess to their arsenal this offseason. However, he decided to opt out of the 2020 season due to coronavirus concerns. The biggest addition in that wide receivers room is arguably receiver Equanimeous St. Brown, who will return to the Packers after spending all of 2019 on injured reserve. Besides St. Brown, how many other wide receivers are on the bubble in 2020?
There's a lot on the bubble, and I wonder if that means that the Packers are more inclined to try to just get these guys to the practice squad. Because even if they lose one, they've got to feel good about getting a good amount of them all the way through. Darius Shepard, Reggie Bagleton, those guys. So I had them only keeping 5 on my projected 53. Really no surprises. I did have them keeping Equanimeous St. Brown. He's still developing. I mean, he's still knocking off the rust from missing all of last year. I think that's going to be a work in progress. However, he's got the upside. He's got higher upside than the guys around him on the bubble. I mean, that size and speed is still there, even if there's rust. So, I think he's going to. I'm keeping 5. The 4 other obvious ones: Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard, MVS, and Jake Kumro with EQ.
That leaves lots of other receivers, such as players like Darius Shepard, possibly maybe a Reggie Bagleton, as options to be receivers on the practice squad. We'll see exactly how the Packers decide to treat their expanded practice squad after we get through the initial cuts. Let's move over to some of the defensive position groups that are in the middle of a bit of a competition, starting with the outside linebackers group. In the offseason, the Packers lost outside linebacker Kyler Fackrell in free agency. He has now moved on to the New York Giants. His absence now leaves not only one hole, possibly more than one hole, along that outside linebacker position group. There are a number of players that are competing for that 4th spot, potentially more spots, like Tim Williams, Jonathan Garvin, and Randy Ramsey. Ryan, who of those 3 earns that 4th spot?
I think they'd keep all 3 if it wasn't mathematical. The problem is it's mathematical, and it's always a numbers game. So I went into it to camp thinking they'd only keep 4. I have 5 now, just because if you look at the way that the reps went, it's clear that they like the 3 guys behind the top 3, Smith and Rashawn Gary. Tim Williams is the guy that separated himself. If you look at the reps, amongst that three, he was the fourth guy. So Tim Williams makes the team. I've got Jonathan Garvin. Really, there's no distinguishable trait between Jonathan Garvin and Randy Ramsey as far as making the team. And first of all, they're two different positions. Jonathan Garvin, he's thicker. He can go inside more. Randy Ramsey, he's just an edge guy. He's built more like Preston Smith, whereas Jonathan Garvin's built more like a Zadarius Smith. So there's two different positions, but really the tiebreaker is that Randy Ramsey is injured. He's got a groin injury, and there's no guarantee he's going to be ready to do special teams week 1. Jonathan Garvin's healthy. He can. Tiebreaker goes to the healthy player. He's my 5th out of 5 guys that I kept at that position.
As head coach Matt LaFleur has said, availability is the best ability for this Packers team, and unfortunately that may impact whether or not Randy Ramsey can earn a spot on this 53-man roster. Let us look over at the defensive backs, specifically the cornerbacks. The big question heading into this training camp was who was going to fill nickel corner Tramon Williams' role now that he has departed in free agency. The answer came about pretty quickly. It became apparent that former undrafted free agent Chandon Sullivan was going to fill that position. Now the big question is, what sort of depth, Ryan, do the Packers have at corner besides their starting 3?
It's a great question. I think that corner is difficult to project because it could be a couple different outcomes there. I had them keeping 5 corners. The top 3, Jair Alexander, Kevin King, Chandon Sullivan, with Josh Jackson and Kadar Hallman. It would not surprise me if Stanford Samuels made this team. When Jair Alexander was out earlier in camp with injury, Stanford Samuels got elevated. He was pretty good when he got those reps. So wouldn't surprise me there. Deshaun Amos, another guy to keep an eye on. But I had them keeping 5 corners, and I had them keeping 5 safeties, a little bit larger of a safety group with Adrian Amos, Darnell Savage Jr., Will Redmond, Vernon Scott I had making the team, and then Raven Green, even though he's injured. I had them keeping a little bit of a bloated safety group with a little bit of a lighter cornerback group, 10 DBs in all.
A little bit of a bloated safety group. However, we know that defensive coordinator Mike Pettin likes to use his safeties in a number of different ways, including at that hybrid linebacker position, a position that safety Raven Green knows pretty well. So, Ryan, I do not fault you for keeping more safeties than possibly seasons past this upcoming season, especially knowing that the inside linebacker position, especially the second starting inside linebacker in base defense right now, it's a little uncertain due to injury. I know we're going to have questions about that, so we will get into some of your comments over on Facebook. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Let's start with Southwest Florida Packers Fan Club. They say that the right tackle position scares them. Number 12, Aaron Rodgers must get rid of the ball quickly week 1 because of the uncertainty, I suppose, at right tackle. Going into training camp, it was clear that the right tackle position was up to 2 different players. It would be a competition between free agent signing tackle Rick Wagner and last year's right guard Billy Turner, who the Packers brought in free agency in 2019. They split reps throughout training camp until first Rick Wagner sustained an injury, a left elbow. He came back, and then Billy Turner came out during Sunday's scrimmage with a knee injury. Not such great news over on the right side of the offensive line, Ryan. How concerned should Packers fans be about Aaron Rodgers' protection along the right side?
I'd say strong to quite strong on the concern department, just like Aaron Rodgers said when asked the exact same question about how unsettling it is. It's strong to quite strong. It's an issue because those 2 guys have been injured. Billy Turner is injured. Rick Wagner, he's back, but he's kind of still injured. So, of the 3 that were competing for 2 spots on the right side of the offensive line, Lane Taylor had the best camp. He was good, and he was healthy. So, be ready for a potential surprise there. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. I'd be ready for a surprise at right tackle.
Big questions and not a lot of depth at tackle. If you look behind players like Turner and Wagner, the options are Alex Light, Yosh Nijman, and John Liglu. that's the depth that's there right now. We don't know if they will be there come roster cuts. Ryan, who else did you have the Packers keeping at tackle in the initial roster?
Yeah, well, if you're just talking true tackle, I did have them keeping Alex Light because I'm not sure that they have a backup left tackle on this team, but Alex Light is the closest thing to it. So for that reason, I have them keeping Alex Light. So David Bakhtiari, Alex Light, Rick Wagner, and then 5 guards, but we're talking about guys that can play multiple spots. Elton Jenkins, starting left guard, right? Well, Matt LaFleur says that he can basically play anywhere. Might have to play anywhere. Lane Taylor, right guard, but he's played right tackle in a pinch. I mean, he's stepped outside. I think he's played left tackle in a pinch. Not ideal, but he's done it. Billy Turner, as much tackle, if not more tackle right now than he is guard. Lucas Patrick might get elevated depending on some machinations and how the maneuverings are on the offensive line. So yeah, they've got a lot of versatility there and a lot of diverse skill sets for a large guard group.
As head coach Matt LaFleur has said repeatedly again and again throughout training camp, the Packers are going to be looking for the best combination of 5 offensive linemen to put together come week 1. He will not tell us exactly who that starting 5 might be. We will continue to keep our eyes on that as we get closer to the first game of the regular season in Minnesota. Let's move over to Natashin, who says, losing Kamal Martin, inside linebacker Kamal Martin, was a tough break for sure. Kamal Martin reportedly will be out several weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. We do not know exactly what the status is right now of his knee injury and how long it'll take him to get back to full health. However, that does leave a hole, at least in the depth chart, at inside linebacker. Martin had been battling with Oren Burks for that second base spot at inside linebacker. And man, Ryan, it sure looked like he was making a case for himself all training camp. Got lots of reps alongside starting inside linebacker Christian Kirksey. How does the depth chart shake out now with Martin presumably going to IR soon?
It doesn't. I mean, that's what depth, because best case scenario, Christian Kirksey stays healthy. He's on the field. They need another inside linebacker unless they're in dime. Well, Kamal Martin's off the field. He's injured. Oren Burks had already fallen behind Kamal Martin, so that tells you what kind of camp Oren Burks was having. Ty Summers might be the best special teamer on this entire roster, but he hasn't shown that he's a linebacker yet. I mean, he hasn't shown that. So you're looking at Christian Kirksey in question mark. Well, that question mark's probably a third safety. I mean, that's what we've seen this defense do a lot last year. It's not ideal schematically to go small up front. It exposes you to the run game. We saw that over and over again, but that's probably where they're at in the best case scenario. The very plausible not best case scenario is that Christian Kirksey gets injured again, because that's what happened the last 2 years. I mean, it's plausible. You hope not. You hope no one gets injured, but it's possible. If that happens, I really don't know what they do. 4 safeties, I don't know. I don't know what they do. I mean, Ty Summers probably gets thrust on the field. Oren Burks thrust on the field. Can those guys withstand that at this point? We haven't seen it. So even in the best case scenario, it's not ideal, but that's a position that it's an issue.
Martin's injury certainly hurts the Packers in their depth going forward into the season. We will see exactly how they decide to address his absence going forward as we get closer to week 1. Let's move over to Jason. Jason says, running back A.J. Dillon has been looking strong. I can see head coach Matt LaFleur using him as a wideout as well. A.J. Dillon in college at Boston College did not have to be much of a receiver. It wasn't a big part of his offense when he was back in college. Now the Packers are expecting him to step up and get involved more in the passing game at the NFL level. He's been getting involved in the passing game throughout training camp. However, he has yet to, of course, play in a game yet. Ryan, how has he looked so far when he is able to get out there and make some catches?
Yeah, he's looked smooth and natural. I'll say this, running back used as a receiver, very novel idea. You might be onto something that you have the wrong running back. But yes, that That's
Nice
certainly
hint.
a possibility. No, A.J. Dillon's looked smooth. He's had a couple issues with his hands in camp, but nothing that significant, which is significant considering he had 21 college catches in 3 seasons. So I think that the Packers really like what he can do as a receiver out of the backfield. They'll throw him the ball. It will be used more of that traditional running back, though. But good thinking. Receiver, running back, that's good thinking.
You dropping some hints there, Ryan?
Nope, not me. I'm not a Viking scout.
Could not be Ryan. Keeping in line with the running backs, let's move over to John. John says, let Dexter Williams go and keep Reggie Begelton. Begelton comes to the Packers after spending his career in the Canadian Football League. Ryan, how has Begelton looked in camp this season?
He's been fine. I think he's adjusting to, like he said, the more confined space in the NFL field than the CFL. But it's not a huge adjustment because he grew up playing American football. It's just the last 3 seasons he's been in the CFL. Either of those guys can be on the practice squad or the 53. Right? Either or. It's almost interchangeable, to be honest. So the Packers will probably it'll come down to 2 things. One, if it makes a difference on special teams, not on offense, on special teams. And 2, if there's a guy that they're much higher on with their potential long term, therefore much less willing to expose him to the waiver, then that's the guy that's more likely to be on the 53.
Mm-hmm. Something to keep in mind. And I know I had mentioned at the top that possibly Begelton could be a candidate for practice squad, and he certainly could be. Not only would he have to beat out someone like Darius Shepard, who's had a very strong camp, he'd also have to beat out Malik Taylor, who was written about over on PackersNews.com this week, who has also had a strong camp and spent last season on the Packers practice squad as well. So even though there aren't many, the depth isn't super there at wide receiver, there are some players that are certainly making an effort to be on the Packers practice squad this upcoming season. Let's move on to Glenn. Glenn asks, any discussions on when fans will be able to attend games in person at Lambeau Field? We know right now that at Lambeau Field, the first 2 home games of the regular season will not have any fans. After that, Ryan, we do not yet know if fans will be allowed to attend. It varies from city to city. In some cities, they're allowing a maximum number of fans. It's just totally based on what the local state government has to say about that. So far, right now, Lambeau Field, first 2 games are a no. After that, unsure.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Apparently, I don't know why. Apparently, this is a political statement. If you want to know how you can increase your chances of being in Lambeau Field this season, wear a mask. That's it.
Yeah, just, be...
Apparently that's political.
Be mindful of other people and limit the spread. Can't hurt.
Just saying, you want to be in there, wear a mask.
Let's move on to another question here from Glenn. Glenn says, how do you think the Packers' run defense has fared in training camp? The reality is the Packers haven't had a ton of experience to get live reps on the ground on both ends, on offense, on defense. We got to see a little bit more of that in Sunday's scrimmage. However, still, it's not the full game speed capacity that we're used to seeing and evaluating both the run game and the run defense. Ryan, that being said, how much better can the Packers' run defense be in 2020?
Well, they can't be a lot worse. So, 300 yards in the NFC Championship game is a really low bar. I think they'll be better. I don't know how much better. I think it's going to be, bottom line, it's going to be sloppy early in the season for everybody. They've had 3 weeks. This is like around the time of preseason game number 2 in your normal training camp calendar. So it's going to come down to here because the mental side of the game is what they've actually been able to work on this offseason. Going back to the spring, they had Zoom calls. They're able to talk about assignments there. You're not able to be on the field executing it, but you're able to talk about it. You're able to get on the same page. And if you listen to this defensive front, you listen to this defensive coordinator, they've said over and over again, it's not a talent thing. It's just the responsibility thing. It's an assignment assured thing, being able to do your job down in and down out against the run, which makes sense because they got Kenny Clark, they got a couple Pro Bowl caliber pass rushers, edge defenders in the Smiths. They've got talent. So it's going to be sloppy in terms of tackling early in the season for everybody. the mental side of the game, the side that they've actually been able to focus on, that's probably what's going to be differentiating between a hot start and a bad start for any team. We'll see which side of that coin the Packers fall.
It'll be a tough start across the league because of the lack of live reps for everybody. It'll be especially tough for the Packers on the ground when they face strong running game that the Minnesota Vikings have. Let's move over to one other question here from Jason. Jason asks, what is with the quarterbacks wrestling around? Never saw that before. Rodgers like a kid again. If you haven't seen,
you got the footage. She's the expert
on
this.
Yeah, Rodgers.
You're asking the right person.
It's a great question. Yeah, a few days ago, I caught Rodgers and Tim Boyle kind of roughhousing a little bit, and that has progressed over the last couple of days till today. They got a little bit into it right before stretch. Rodgers made a dive at Tim Boyle's calf, and
he's going for the number one job.
Something
hot take.
He's trying. There seems to be some sort of competition going on. I can't exactly tell you what that is. I don't know, but it's certainly entertainment nonetheless, and it certainly seems like Aaron Rodgers is enjoying himself out there on the practice field, Ryan.
He does. We'll see if that, continues. I get the whole Aaron Rodgers is having fun storyline, but I think what matters is how he runs the offense and those sort of things. So that's what I'm looking to see in a week. But yeah, I mean, he's looked like a guy enjoying his time. I've enjoyed my time. I've enjoyed this training camp more than probably I've enjoyed any other training camp. Do you know why, Olivia?
Why is that, Ryan?
Because the 5 months before that, I was watching the paint dry on my walls at home. So it's nice to, it's nice to be productive. And I imagine everyone kind of feels that way, not just Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, I wonder if that has something to do with it as well.
I agree. It's nice to be around your teammates.
Yeah.
Like Ryan would. I'm not going to dive for your legs and try to trip you, but
No.
It has been nice to be back. It's been great to be back and chatting with all of you in person, out in nature, outside of Lambeau Field. We've enjoyed having these discussions with all of you. We will be back hopefully sometime this weekend to break down the Packers' initial 53-man roster and 16-man practice squad. Make sure you're following along all of our social media platforms for updates. The next couple of days are going to be chaos, and we want you to be there with us. So make sure you're checking out PackersNews.com for all of your Packers coverage. Also, Tom Silverstein will be running his live blog all day tomorrow, so you can voice any frustrations, any confusion you might have to Tom Silverstein. If you go over to PackersNews.com, again, you should be able to access his live blog come tomorrow. For Ryan, I'm Olivia. We will see you next